Here's your optimistic tip of the day. The world is crazy. In fact, I would venture to say that it's hilarious by default. Cue plug. But it seems like it's kind of going crazier. And as a film buff, it's getting kind of harder to justify your love of older films, especially when you see articles such as this. Or this. And he thought Song of the South was bad. It has me asking, why do young people have issues with older films? Is it because they're in black and white? Is it because they're insensitive from today's moral lens? Is it because the special effects many times kind of suck in comparison to today's CG wonder? Well, I dug a little deeper, and it turns out that millennials don't really care about classic movies for many of those reasons. And when you dig into it a little bit further, it turns out that less than half of millennials have seen Gone with the Wind. Oh, that makes sense. Moreover, The Sound of Music, To Kill a Mockingbird, or even The Shawshank Redemption. Crazier still, only 28% have seen Casablanca. Many have heard of it. Many probably lie about seeing it. Check out our episode for The Godfather for that reference. Which begs me to ask, is Casablanca required viewing? Welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. I am your host, Demosthenes, and with me today is our ever-faithful co-host, Mr. Kyle Nash. How's it going, Kyle?
Doing pretty good, man. Gotta tell you, I'm ready to actually kick this in a different direction. I should say again, after all the GOT and going under the sea, I don't know if that's a spoiler or not. But ready to kick it back to the old school, to the past.
As Kyle just subtly hinted, tonight we will be talking about Casablanca. Yes, is Casablanca, the great Casablanca, required viewing? As per viewer request, tonight we'll be diving in, and just like our Godfather episode, if you haven't seen it, the link is below. Kyle hadn't seen Casablanca. So this will be, I'm very intrigued by your take yet again. Any initial thoughts? What were you expecting going into Casablanca?
You know, I expected something that was going to be slow, kind of drawn out, kind of love story like, very overly dramatic, not quite maudlin, because if it was that maudlin, it wouldn't be that well renowned probably. And yeah, I expected something to be pretty slow, but yet intriguing rather than entertaining.
So you were expecting more of a romance film, essentially.
Sure. Well, and I mean, think about it from the perspective of somebody who hasn't seen it. Time goes by. When they show Bogey and Ingrid Bergman together, it's always, that whole thing. They're out in front of the plane. There's a plane involved. I mean, damn it! Even on the Great Movie Ride, previously on the Great Movie Ride until Disney is about ready to end it.
Actually, as of this airing, it's gone.
Why don't you just ruin my night a little more? Step on some glass, Demos, okay? Anyways, so yeah, the point is, even ending, they even have animatronics portraying this damn scene with the two of them, and that dun 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 dun. Now, one thing this movie's definitely done, and granted, much like The Court Jester, which we talked about in my most underrated films, this isn't a musical, but there's some good music in it. And time goes by. Once you actually hear Sam sing it, you realize it's not some very sad song. It's got a little upbeat, little kick to it, but you never hear it being sung. You always just hear that blam, 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 blam. So completely blew up my whole entire process on this film in just that moment. And there's a lot of other things that go on in that movie. Humphrey Bogart, I mean, we already know he's amazing because he's Bogey. He's got a thing, like, the persona therein is the personification of cool.
The man
For
knows. The man knows how to wear a fedora and a trench coat. I'll just say that.
well, not just that. I mean, he looks like a badass in a damn white tuxedo coat. Not many people can pull off that look. Get over yourself, Demos. I'm not talking about Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, okay?
which was a riff on this.
What isn't? That's also what I'm figuring out. God damn it, Hot Shots Part Deux took element of its storyline trying to be damn Casablanca. You gotta be bleeping kidding me.
You know what the craziest? I have to mention this now, but you know what the craziest unofficial remake of Casablanca is? Barbed Wire with Pamela Anderson. It's pretty much a remake of Casablanca.
Never saw it, but I mean,
that's not an endorsement.
No, I mean, you said it was with Pamela Anderson. Well, I mean, she's already got her pair travel passes carried on her, if you know what I'm saying. Anyways, cheesy joke. No, yeah, there's a lot more going on than I could have imagined. There's a lot more excitement. The tempo for this movie is actually dramatically upbeat. So much so, as we'll get into it later, there might even be bits of negative. I might have a little bit of shade to throw that way.
Oh boy. So with my co-host not having seen the film, I decided to find out if there were other age demographics beyond millennials that hadn't seen it either. What better place to do so than a nearby Casablanca outdoor screening?
I really want to know what this movie's all about. I don't see a lot of old movies.
But yeah,
I'm excited to see this one.
I know that Humphrey Bogart's in it. I think Ingrid Bergman might be in it. And other than that, I really don't know much about it, so I'm excited to watch it.
I do not think I have ever seen it.
Me neither. I think it's going to be good. It's an oldie. It's classic. You hear people talk about it and quips from the movie, and I have no idea.
I don't know what it's going to be. I just know Humphrey Bogart's in it.
I equated to fans, ceiling fans, the Casablanca ceiling fan.
First of all, it blew my mind that seeing this several times and seeing Humphrey Bogart, I had no idea the pairing's name was Rick and Elsa. I mean, Elsa. Ooh, that's exotic. Ooh, Elsa. How you doing, Elsa? Yeah. And don't even, nobody make the Frozen joke, please. Thank you. However, I had no idea that Bogart's name in this, like, I can't even call him Humphrey. It just feels wrong. I had no idea that Bogart's character's name in this was Rick. Hi, guys. I'm Rick. This is my gin joint. It's so damn simple, yet obviously fits the character. He's just a dude from New York who managed to pull off some stuff and make some hustles, and now he owns gin joints and stuff. Whatever.
You know, it's kind of funny because the original name of the play was Everybody Goes to Rick's. And they changed it to Casablanca to sound more exotic. I think it was a smart move.
I'm inclined to agree. Because, see, here's the thing. That would completely ruin in all the gin joints, in all the world, she ends up in mine. Of course she did. Everybody goes to Rick's, asshole. I mean, so that would be his fault. And really makes you rethink that scene. I'm just saying, you can't get pissed off at successful marketing. That character is only something, he's almost a little too perfect at what he does, but that's what they did in movies back then. Like, seriously, the only thing is missing is whipping out the cape and flying after the damn plane to steal the girl back from Laszlo. Okay, I'm just saying.
He's looking at you, kid.
Anyways, no, and something else, I mentioned that my instinct would be that it was going to be slow, something that was thought out. And granted, the last thing I seen before this, not counting The Fifth Element, obviously, was The Godfather, which does have its slow moments, but takes time to build and needs to be nurtured into a classic. This thing is swinging at you, and it's swinging fast and often. And there's comedy here I couldn't imagine. Like, just off the top of my head, he's talking to the German officer, and he's like, "We have a complete posse on you, Mr. Rick, Mr. Rick." And he looks at it and like, "Don't worry, we won't broadcast it everywhere." Trying to intimidate him, and he says, "What do you mean my eyes are blue? Or excuse me, my eyes are brown?" That was hilarious. And
I have that on my notes because this film has a lot of now, a lot of the films at the time, because of the Hays Code, they were censored. They couldn't say, they couldn't curse, they couldn't show any nudity, they couldn't even imply half of the sexual innuendo that this film suggests, right. Especially when it comes to Claude Rains essentially trading visas for sex, et cetera, et cetera. This film gets away with quite a bit in retrospect.
Yeah, I mean, Claude Rains' character, Dewey, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed to think he's a scumbag, but damn it, somehow or another he's lovable, and I can't quite place why.
It's Claude Rains. I think honestly, on any given day, if you were to ask me who my favorite character from Casablanca is, I actually might switch to between the two of them because Claude Rains puts in such a great performance, and it's just a little bit of a tangent that one of my other favorite films of all time is Alfred Hitchcock's Notorious, which also starred Claude Rains and Ingrid Bergman. It's about the same time period.
It's a really solid movie up to or around the end. All right, class. Spoilers, bitches. Spoilers. That it gets a little weak there, I'll be honest, but I walked out of this thing with the same 3 words in my head that I did when I saw The Godfather. I get it. I get why it's hyped. I get why people love it so much. I get why it's mentioned to be so essential. And I'll put it this way. I had a great time watching it.
I'm kind of glad to hear that. I will say, just to touch on some of your points, when a lot of people think of Casablanca, they don't immediately, the first thing that they go to is the romance, because like you said, most of the posters, the DVD that I own has the two of them in mid embrace, just like you said, we're playing in the background, etc., etc. But a lot of people overlook the fact that primarily there is a thriller element to it. There is a lot of comedy. There is a lot of political commentary. It's a World War II film made during World War II, and so there's quite a bit of courage to it, especially. And I know I'm gonna go into trivia saying this, but I think with this knowledge, seeing the film gives you a little bit of a different perspective. That a lot of the actors who appeared in the film as extras or Nazis were refugees themselves. So when you have the Nazis were played by a lot of Jewish refugees, funny enough, and the scene, which I honestly think is probably the most powerful scene in the movie, with the dueling anthems between the Germans and the French. When people talk about the music of Casablanca as time goes by, etc. Yes, it's a great song. It's a very memorable song, and it's used very, very well to define the two leads. But I think the most powerful use of music in the film is that duel, the anthems, and seeing the tears in the extras in the background players, and knowing that they're refugees, knowing that it's in the middle of this crisis, just gives the scene an extra dose of genuine power that you would never get in a post-World War II film.
I don't know that we're going to see that again in any kind of a film. I don't think in our particular society who's capable of putting you out on the court of public opinion like that, who's pushing PC political correctness as much as they are, I don't see a world where I don't see a world where if a war breaks out that there'll be a movie made about said war while it's happening, to use your words.
I see what you're saying. I kind of disagree.
You know what? I'll do it this way. Pop quiz, Demos. What are we more likely to see again? A wartime film during the said war to get that kind of sentiment from Casablanca, or what they pulled off in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where Warner Brothers and Disney came together? What's more likely to happen?
Well, okay. Here's the thing. I think that it's more likely for Disney and Warner Brothers to come together than Disney to ever make a film like Who Framed Roger Rabbit again, because that film has so much adult humor in it for a film that has those iconic characters in it that you were never going to see the like of it again. But you know what? I think we are going to see more films in wartime. I think because
about the war that it's in too. Like I
Oh,
don't want
yeah.
to be, it's a damn Vietnam movie in World War V. No, screw it.
I don't think we'll ever see something as blatant as the propaganda in something like Donald Duckster Fuhrer's Face. And if you don't know what Donald Duckster Fuhrer's Face is, check out my review on hilaritybydefault.com.
Looking for any way to get the Donald Duck Nazi movie out there, man. I love it. Or not movie, cartoon. My bad.
It is one of the most terrifying and funniest 8 minutes you will ever spend watching a Disney flick.
I saw it. He ain't lying.
Let's just talk about Ingrid Bergman for 1 second, because I honestly, especially when you consider all the fantastic actresses from the era between Katharine Hepburn and Grace Kelly, and so you can go down a list of beauty, but I don't think that anybody really tops Ingrid Bergman from the era. And she has this quality to her. She's not just absolute perfection on the eyes, but she has this vulnerability and this genuine sense of intelligence coming from her that doesn't seem like she's turning her nose up at anybody. It's just such a perfect actress.
Yeah, I like that. The innocence vibe, the vulnerability vibe is definitely there, and you have to have that for Elsa to work.
But she's not a dumb blonde either. She is ruthless and intelligent in a lot of her performances. Courageous. Her performance in Notorious, I think, is a career high. I think but we're not talking about Notorious here. But that I just had to mention. It's been tremendous.
A Lauren Bacall or something like that. That's far more a sex symbol. Does not do the job here. Okay, you need somebody who is vulnerable, like you said, capable of that, but by the same token, is more than just eye candy. And she's aware, like the whole reason, essentially, that we're led to believe towards the end. What is it? You won't regret it now. You'll regret it. Maybe not now. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next year, but soon. I'm not going to say it exactly, but punchline being, she belongs on the arm of a damn revolutionary, which was what Laszlo's being portrayed as. That does not have the same impact if it's some sort of a sex symbol on his arm.
I think that was also a nice thing that this film accomplished, in that both of these guys are not there isn't a villainous streak in it. There's no like disgusting mannerism. There's no they set it up. When she does walk off with him at the end, you don't feel like she's losing in this deal. You can see that, especially during the one scene I mentioned before, the duel of the anthems. You see that she has genuine love for this guy and will do anything for him.
They got married for a reason.
Yeah, and it makes you feel bad for Rick, but at the same time, the ending comes off as bittersweet rather than as tragic as it could have been played up, especially.
Yeah, exactly. It was the best that it could be, considering all of it.
Something else you mentioned earlier about the sense of humor. It is a funny film. It's not I wouldn't call it a comedy, but some of the lines. One of my favorites, and it is the scene where Claude Rains is closing down Rick's bar. He's like, "There's gambling in here," and the guy runs up. He's like, "Here are your winnings." Yeah, it's kind of expected, but it just the delivery from all of them in that scene was just absolutely spot on. And the for a film that was that had its production woes, it was being rewritten as it went. The dialogue is on point in this film. The dialogue is fantastic.
The only thing I can think that might have been under that much fire during its production might have been like One-Eyed Jack, Marlon Brando in a Western, and there's just all sorts of crazy ass lines that you would only see in that kind of a setting, but it doesn't come out to be the same kind of classic that Casablanca is.
I think that part of the charm is they weren't trying.
Really? Really? Nothing from the nostalgia guy on throwing that in there?
No, I actually applaud you.
Bitch.
That's right. Stop everything. Kyle just made a nostalgic reference.
Again.
All hail King Kyle.
More just a motherfucker. Because a Chester unemployed is nobody's fool. What?
In the great words of Magneto, they're learning.
This damn guy.
The funny thing is that this film wasn't being written as an epic. It wasn't being written as a film like an Oscar contender. It was they're just trying to make a good movie, and
yet somehow
and yet somehow made one of the greatest films of all time. It's
wow.
I'd be shocked if there's I'd be shocked if there are top 10 lists that don't include Casablanca. Most likely in the top 3, and with the other 2 contenders probably being The Godfather and Citizen Kane. If I were to compare it to Citizen Kane, which is probably the most apropos because they're made about the same time, they're both black and white films. Citizen Kane is probably technically the better film as far as the shots and the structure. Yes, it's probably the better film. But Casablanca is the more human film. It's a film that I want to watch again and again.
Human is a great description. I like that. And I mean, you mentioned everything from the comedy to the conflict to the romance and all of, there's just a lot going on there. I mean, even the little jazz song that Sam plays with Knock on Wood, I found that to be tremendously entertaining. I'm like, why are you wasting my time with Time Goes By when this song's on here? Now, granted, that completely changed the element of the romance if they lean on that. And something even better about it being made back then, some douche chill in a damn boardroom would be like, okay, now where's Casablanca 2? Let's cash this cow. No. God, no.
There's a legend, and I'm not sure if this is true, but there is a legend that in the early 80s, they passed the script of Casablanca without the title. They passed the script along to some major studios to see if they would pick it up. And a few of them, to their credit, realized what it was. But a lot of them denied it with notes saying there's too much dialogue, not enough sex, all these things. It sounds like a legend because I find that difficult to believe, and yet at the same time I find it easy to believe.
I find it entirely easy to believe nowadays, man. Shoot.
I think Casablanca is one of those films, and this is why I'm gonna get to our required viewing here. This is why I believe it's required viewing. It is one of those untouchable films. It's perfect the way it is. I don't think, and it's such a taut, fast-paced, perfectly structured film. I don't think that there's anything that you can do to improve it. And any attempt to revisit that is going to be a cash grab. By all means, it's going to be a cash grab. Maybe just based on the notoriety alone that we've remade Casablanca. But they're never going to be able. They're never going to be able to top the main cast alone: Humphrey Bogart, Claude Rains, Ingrid Bergman, Peter Lorre, which we haven't talked about, who is his slimy and insane self. It's an untouchable film, and therefore I believe it's required viewing.
I may have had a little bit of shade to throw on how the movie ends, and granted, now that I know why that may have existed, or at least some element of it, that does help. But I'm not prepared to do anything epic to say like it changed my life and all this other stuff. Today, I would actually personally say The Godfather is a better film. However, is this required reading? Absolutely. This should be the bar for what making family movies in this day and age looks like, right? Because you get away with more now than you would in the 1940s for certain. And if you were trying to portray a love story of some fashion or a romantic element while still having it appropriate for the kiddies, so to speak, take note from how the story is told in Casablanca. right? Because you and I know as adults, or at least, adult age, we're still kids at heart. Let's not lie.
Yeah, I never talk about Disney movies or anything. So,
but like we know that at some point, Rick and Elsa got to it. They were doing some nasty together at some point.
Oh yeah, well they cut away to the spotlight, so that's the cue that something was going on.
and but the punchline being like, Elsa as a character, you're not seeing a whole lot of skin. She's just there and like, yeah, I'm beautiful. What you gonna do? And dude, I get it with Bogey. I'm if People's Sexiest Man Alive was a thing, I'm sure he would have made it at some point in that decade. But family films with all the different elements and intrigue and things like that, if movies targeted that rather than some of the other drivel that you see nowadays, I think we'd have a lot more quality stuff.
Casablanca is required viewing. It's it's black and white. Yes, the special effects are kind of wonky. And funny enough, they weren't allowed at the time because they were filming during wartime. They weren't actually allowed to film at actual airports. So that's why they had to use a lot of models and stuff and be very creative. And for the most part, they did a fantastic job. Yeah, so a lot of it is dated. Whatever you do, if you do decide to sit down and watch Casablanca, do not, I repeat, do not watch the colorized version. I'm against colorization of black and white films as it is, but
we're improving history.
The colorization of Casablanca is probably the worst example that I have ever seen. And that includes the first ever colorized movie, which is Topper, where the colors were an old Cary Grant movie, one of his first big hits, where the colors of their shirts were literally changing frame by frame. But the colorization of Casablanca makes it look like a cartoon, and not the good family entertainment cartoon that Kyle was talking about earlier. It looks like a freaking cartoon.
South Park?
It's also no, South Park is far more realistic, and tangible at the very least. I can tell that it's paper that moves, even though it really isn't. The thing is, especially with a lot of people don't realize that black and white films, it's not just the fact that they're lacking color, that they're black and white. It's the shadows, it's the angles, the filming. There are points where the set literally has shadows painted on the walls themselves to increase that effect. It's an art form in and of itself. So you decide to take Windows MS Paint and decide to make it colorful. You're destroying an enormous aspect of that film. I recommend seeing it, but if you decide you're not gonna bother to watch a black and white film, don't even bother watching it. That's all I'm saying.
Well said. I got nothing else for you, Chief.
That is my statement by default. A very special thank you to everybody that participated in our little interview experiment. And that about does it for tonight's episode of Default Assault. Make sure to like and subscribe and turn on the notifications. And let us know, do you consider Casablanca required viewing? Are there any movies you'd like us to hit and decide and decipher if they are required viewing? Or do you disagree? Do you think that you've seen the colorized version of Casablanca and it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen? You're wrong. You're completely wrong, but let us know in the comments anyway. Follow me on Twitter at Default Hilarity and on Facebook, Hilarity by Default. While you're at it, check out our website, hilaritybydefault.com, for weekly movie reviews and other fun stuff. Kyle, where can we find you?
Of course, you could find me, Kyle Nash, the student of the game, on Twitter at the SOTG, and of course on Facebook as the student of the game. And here's looking at you by default.